Welcome back to Genesis Does with your host, Mr. Mega Man Fan. And as always, thank you to all of my subscribers right here on the channel. Over 880 of you as of the recording of this video. And I want to give a special shout out to my friend Dan, who said, and I quote, "The amount of time and effort you put into your videos brings a lot of joy to people." And when he said that, I was inspired to do Sonic Spinball. I had kind of been avoiding Sonic games because it's a little cliche to say Genesis does what Nintendo don't and then play Sonic the Hedgehog, because obviously a franchise character like Sonic was never going to appear on Nintendo, nor would Mario have ever appeared on Sega, at least back in this era. But I think Sonic Spinball is a great place to start because everybody always talks about Sonic 1, 2, and 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3D, but who really talks about Sonic Spinball? And a lot of people who do talk about it say that it's not even a Sonic the Hedgehog game. I'll get into that in a second, but first let me get out this manual. Since last time when I did Rocket Knight Adventures, the manual was a bit of a mess. I wanted to show you this one in particular because it's really clean. There's no writing on it, there's no stains on the pages. There's a nice ad for Aladdin on the back as well, so hey, be sure to check out Slope's Game Room and the history of Aladdin games that he just did. Big shout out to Daniel Iverson, aka DJ Slope, and also a big shout out to 8-Bit Eric, who just hit 59,000 subscribers last night, so congratulations to him as well. Good to see people that I like on YouTube being successful, and I'm happy that in a small way I'm also having a little success too, so that's another reason I felt like playing Sonic Spinball, because this is one of my favorite Sega Genesis games, much like Rocket Knight Adventures was. And now let me get into why people talk about whether this is or isn't a Sonic game, because the Sega Technical Institute basically put out this game because Sonic 3, or at the time Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because they hadn't split it into two cartridges yet, was not going to be ready in time for the holiday season in 1993, and they were like, oh dear, we need a Sonic the Hedgehog game for Christmas. We need something for parents to buy their kids when they go to the store shopping on Black Friday. So in November of 1993, they released Sonic Spinball just in time for the holidays. And of course, a lot of people weren't expecting Sonic the Hedgehog to be mashed into a pinball game, much like I'm sure people felt that way the first time they saw Kirby Pinball Land. It didn't really become a trend for every video game mascot or franchise to have a pinball game until after those first couple of games. Then you started to have things like Metroid Pinball and Pokemon Pinball and Super Mario Pinball. I mean, at one point everybody had a pinball game, but these kind of paved the way. They were the pioneering days of mascot characters getting their own pinball games. And if you look at this as a pinball game and not as a platformer game, it really does work as such, because the physics of Sonic as a pinball are pretty nice. The flipper action is good. You have a lot of different targets to shoot at. You have multiple screens for the pinball to go through, so there is a lot to like here. And Sonic does even have a little bit of platforming to him. When he's standing on surfaces, you can move him left and right. You can nudge him in the air as well. And when he lands on a barrel, like below these flippers, you can actually have him swim towards an area by paddling left and right. So there are some platforming-esque elements here. And you also have a Sonic thematic goal, because you're collecting these Chaos Emeralds, or whatever you want to decide that they are for the purposes of this game, but you have to collect 3 of them in each stage before you can advance to the boss table, where you get to fight Eggman / Dr. Robotnik and whatever boss robot form he has for that particular section. So I've collected the first of the 3 emeralds here. I'm going to work my way to the other 2, which are in the tables that are to the left and to the right. You have to shoot Sonic through the tubes to those others. I'm shooting him towards the right table here. Now there's a switch in this area that you have to pull down to enable the rail car to access the gem. You have to do the same on the left table as well. Once you've done that successfully, you can get all 3 gems, and there's also barrels that block your way towards a higher target, which is where you can land Sonic to shoot him up into the upper area. where the minecarts are, or if you've already collected both the gems, up to the boss area itself, which is gated off until you have all three. As you can see, the physics there allow Sonic to jump back up if he lands on the barrel, but if you've already paddled the barrel over to collect a Chaos Emerald or gem, whatever, and the barrel is no longer there, you obviously lose a life. Again, I was inspired by both reaching over 880 subscribers last night during 8-Bit Eric's stream and the very positive comments that Dan left me this morning, and I thought, I'm going to have a great run on Sonic Spinball. I'm going to do this entire first area, this first stage of the game, without losing a life. And I've had a lot of practice on Sonic Spinball over the years, so that shouldn't be a problem. I played this on my Genesis in college. I played it again in emulation when my roommate moved out and took his Genesis with him. I bought a PC game that included it. I don't remember whether that was a legal or illegal copy. It may not have been. It may have been a bootleg now that I think about it. But then I finally got my Sega Genesis back, the original model that I had. Well, not the same Genesis, of course, but one just like the one I had in college once I moved into an apartment. And as you could see from the sale date on the back of the Sonic Spinball, it was priced $9.39 in 2001. So that's when I reacquired the game to play it on my original Model 1 style Genesis that I had also reacquired. So everything came full circle. Like 8 years after the game was first played by me, I got it back again. So hooray for me. But also hooray for Sonic the Hedgehog, because honestly, this whole debate about whether or not it's a Sonic game, it kind of seems ridiculous now when you consider all the different things that Sonic the Hedgehog has been through over the years. He's been in some really terrible games like Sonic 2006 and Sonic and the Black Knight, and he's also been in some crossover games like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Some of those are good, some of those are bad. Check out Ant Dude's video on that. So I just don't understand why people got so worked up over this is not a Sonic the Hedgehog game, because if you play this one today compared to some of the things that Sonic has been in, it is very much a Sonic game. You might have even said this was more of a Sonic game than Sonic Adventure when the Dreamcast came out, although eventually people did get used to that style of 3D Sonic to the point where now people want a Sonic Adventure 3, which I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, we're lucky we got Sonic Mania, which was both a remix of original Sonic the Hedgehog levels and new levels that were designed in the old Sonic style by Christian Whitehead and his team. So very authentically Sega Genesis style Sonic the Hedgehog, which blew my mind that they actually let it be done that way instead of using a modernized Sonic or making it like Sonic 4, which we all know what a disaster that turned out to be. But again, in hindsight, I don't think the Sonic 4 Part 1 and Part 2 were terrible. They just weren't what people wanted when they wanted to relive the authentic Sonic on Sega Genesis experience, and especially for something that followed in the numbering lineage. If you're going to follow Sonic 3, which is an all-time classic game, you really should step it up and deliver something memorable, remarkable, authentic, and pleasant. And Sonic 4 just didn't hit all of those notes. So Sonic Mania was more of a Sonic 4 than Sonic 4. At least I think that's how it's going to go down in history. And I apologize here for getting caught in a loop trying to get this switch. Every time I thought I could land it on the left flipper and flip it over to the switch, I ended up back flipping it back up into the pipe again. So finally I was like, okay, if it's just going to keep back flipping on the left flipper, I'm going to back flip the ball on the right flipper and get the switch that way. I figured one way or another, I'm gonna get the damn Switch. Now, another thing I've worked on from Rocket Knight Adventures to this video is getting the display centered a little better, and hopefully the audio is synced even tighter than it was before. So once again, shout out to Ryan for the feedback on the Rocket Knight Adventures video, and I hope this one shows some improvement as I strive to improve on each and every video. As Dan said, I put a lot of time and effort into these, so I want it to be good for those of you. Now, another reason that I don't think I had as much objection to Sonic being in a pinball game as some people I knew is because I loved pinball games when I was young. I think my two favorites, at least before the age of 18, were Pinbot, which they had at the convenience store in the same town as my high school, and I pumped a lot of quarters into that. There was an NES version of Pinbot, but I don't think it truly captured the fun and excitement of the pinball table. It was okay, but it wasn't anywhere near as fun. And one that never got a console version that I know of was Addams Family Pinball. Now, my buddy Sir Crunch and I used to play the hell out of that one at a miniature golf course in Ames, the same place where I went to college, so I think that was just a superb table. It doesn't seem to get mentioned in pinball enthusiast videos or vlogs, but I really liked all the different targets, all the different bonus games. I was pretty good at getting free plays on Addams Family Pinball, way better than I was on Pinbot, so that one, it appealed to me a lot. And later on, when I lived in Michigan, I really liked South Park Pinball, but that came way after Sonic Spinball, so it doesn't really count for the purposes of explaining why I like Sonic Spinball so much, but that was another table that I've always thought was really good, was the South Park Pinball game. So, different tastes for different folks, different strokes and all that. Now I've got the gems, so it's time to move on up to face Dr. Robotnik / Eggman. This might be a worthwhile time for me to address this whole Sonic movie controversy. I thought the first look of Sonic the Hedgehog in the trailer was way off. As I told a friend recently, he looked like some sort of creepypasta furry horror show movie creature and not Sonic the Hedgehog at all. So I don't blame them for taking the feedback and deciding to redo it. But I also noticed that people are trying to have it both ways. First, they complained that Sonic the Hedgehog was looking terrible in the trailer, and then they complained about the poor animators who were going to have to go back and redo it all because he looked terrible. Alright, you can't have it both ways. Either you want the Sonic the Hedgehog movie to be better or you don't. And it's not like those animators aren't getting paid. They're not going to be forced into a sweatshop over a row of computers and told, here, you have to redo this all, and we're not going to give you another dime. No, if they're working for a Hollywood movie, they're going to get paid for it. Their time is valuable. They could be making lots of other special effects and lots of other CGI and lots of other movies. So if they're good enough to be doing a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, they're good enough to be doing any movie. They're going to get paid for their time and paid well. And if they're not paid well, then you can complain about it. If there's a Kotaku article later on saying Sonic the Hedgehog animators weren't paid for redoing the movie, then I'll eat crow and say you were right. It wasn't fair to them to have to redo it all if they didn't get paid. But I don't see that being the case. It may actually turn out to be the opposite. They may get paid twice because they did it once, and if they have to redo the whole thing, they're actually making more money. So maybe this is a huge boon to those people working on Sonic the Hedgehog. Let's take out Dr. Robotnik here, his scorpion form with a giant tail. First you gotta break off the tail, and then you gotta bounce on his head until he's dead. And if you miss, you drop all the way back down to the very first table. But hopefully that will not happen here. Bounce, 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 bounce. You can hold left to kind of keep yourself pinned in there using Sonic's semi-platform-esque abilities in Sonic Spinball, which I did successfully. I managed to keep him trapped in that area between the tail and the body. now I can just bounce on top of the body and take Dr. Robotnik, Eggman, Scorpion out once and for all. Incidentally, that's probably the one thing everybody does agree about from the trailer, is that Jim Carrey makes a very excellent Eggman / Dr. Robotnik, especially as he gets more and more crazy looking in the trailer until by the end he has the classic look that we all know. Oh, and about Sonic Spinball, I read a Wikipedia article about this game before I started playing, and it claims that this is set in the universe of The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, the one voiced by Jaleel White. Now, I never watched that cartoon when I was in college, so I can't say I would have recognized it even then. And having watched it now and seen a lot of memes based on the Sonic Says, I don't really see it either. It doesn't show up any more to me now than it would have been had I watched it in the heyday. So if there's a thematic tie-in with that cartoon, it wasn't apparent to me as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. This is just a Sonic game, a pinball Sonic game, but as I said, it's a Sonic game. There we go. We've taken out the boss, and now it's time for the bonus area. Yes, you get a little bonus section after you clear a main Sonic stage. And this one is to free all of the captured critters that Dr. Robotnik has put away for whatever nefarious schemes that he has. It'll even tell you so here. They're trapped alive. Free them. So you gotta take out all these targets as he zips back and forth to try and block your pinball from knocking them out. And unfortunately, the physics in this area are not really anywhere close to as good as the main Sonic Spinball game. It is much harder to control your ball here, and the flippers are a little too far apart, so it's hard to save your ball when it comes back down. And you can see I've already lost 2, and you only get 3, so this is not going so well. Hopefully I can start taking out some of these targets here. But I think this has been a successful playthrough whether I win the bonus stage or not, so once this is done, we'll wrap it up. Thank you again to my 880 plus subscribers, and to friends of mine like Chris and Dan and Ryan who've offered me helpful feedback and tips on how to improve these videos. I've really fallen in love with doing the Genesis Does series because even though most of the Mega Man games I played growing up were on Nintendo, Sega Genesis was what I had in college, and I really fell in love with that console, and I still enjoy playing it today. It is a great system, and it's not about knocking Super Nintendo, it's just about showing you what Genesis does, because there were games that you could only play on Sega Genesis. And that shall do it for this video from the Genesis Does series. I'm Mr. Mega Man Fan, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Bye for now.